Summer routines live or die by how easy they are, and honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
Security threats are everywhere. But with Xfinity XFi, you're notified of threats to your in-home Wi-Fi network, so all your connected devices are protected. That's simple, easy, awesome. Switch to Xfinity today and get a great offer. You'll get fast speeds and the best in-home Wi-Fi experience with Xfinity XFi. Plus, ask about enhanced security for safer browsing and more. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit an Xfinity store to switch today. Restrictions apply.
Welcome back to TalkNorth.com. Thank you for listening. If you can, please download before you listen. It helps our business. I'd also like to thank our producer, Brandon Morton, and let you know if you'd like to sponsor this program or any of the programs on the network, you can reach me at jsouhan47@gmail.com. Welcome back to the Tin Shed in Savage, home of the Russo-Souhan show. Another huge crowd. We had a massive crowd for the 200th Russo-Souhan show, and I thought that was an aberration. It's probably bigger tonight. Thank you all for making your way here. We do appreciate it.
Why would you say it's an aberration?
Well, we usually had, well, let's face it, we used to have like 3/4 of that, and I thought that was great. And now we're like, people are over there by the video games, and I didn't quite expect that.
Yeah, now people.
I mean, why would people drive to come see us? Is the question I keep asking myself.
Do you have in your budget? Do you have like parking attendant money?
Let's say yes.
We're gonna start to need that.
Let's say yes. We're gonna need a bouncer too.
So.
All right. So I thought since there's nothing going on, we could just show some slides of Michael's last trip to Europe.
That's funny. A lot of the people in Europe are here tonight, so I appreciate you coming.
Very loyal. Yeah. I apologize for wearing shorts. This is our shorts and slacks version of the Russo-Souhan show. I was standing watching Viking practice all day, so I'm a little overheated. All right, enough. Let's get to it. You got Paul Fenton fired. How does it feel?
That's funny. That's very funny. No, I mean, honestly, I think the timing just comes to it as a shock to us all. You know, it is funny. I mean, the last 2 or 3 days leading up to it, you know, you start to hear rumblings again, but you're just like, well, it can't be. I mean, there's nobody in the organization that can really take over, and are you going to really let somebody that kind of ran the team through the draft and trade season and free agency, all of a sudden you're going to fire them this late? And then all of a sudden that morning I heard that it happened, and then you just go to work. But it is funny because the day before I started to kind of get the sense, and you start writing your story, you know, just to get stuff in the can just in case. You know, I hate to say it, but kind of like you do in the newspaper industry with an obituary, and just to have it there. And then all of a sudden it happens, and then it actually kind of became an easy story to write because you have so much already written. And, you know, it's just, it's a little shocking, but I think probably the right move. It just, you know, this organization had become really, their reputation league-wide was starting to take an unbelievable hit. At the draft, it was so disconcerting, the amount of people that was coming up to me and it's like, what's going on with Minnesota? What's going on with Fenton? You know, and they just kept on hearing the things. And then this month, I know a lot of people question the timing, but it had always just been sort of a slow bleed here, and there are just always little incidents. There was, when Craig Leopold said yesterday that there really wasn't a big issue that caused this firing, he's not lying. There wasn't some smoking gun. It was just every single day some small little incident, a fire that they had to put out. And what's amazing about that is that Paul hasn't even been in town. This has all been happening from afar. And there were a couple little final straws. There was some meeting last week that he didn't show up to that I know perturbed a lot of people inside the organization, a Hockey Ops budget meeting, and they had to do it by phone with him. And then obviously the Parisi story I wrote didn't paint a great light on the organization, and it just got to the point where I think that, and as I've written the last couple of days, there were some job performance review meetings with Paul here the last couple months, and they really wanted to work with him to help him improve, not just as a GM, but also being a leader, really helping treating people better. And they just felt like it was there were signs were showing that he wasn't learning some of the lessons that really they hoped he had learned. And this is about him. I mean, he's gonna look. I've reached out to him. He hasn't written back yet or called back yet, and I'm not expecting him to. But the reality is that he is gonna. There are people that he's blaming, and I've heard it the last couple of days of what he's telling certain people, and the reality is that this was self-inflicted. He did not treat people correctly. The morale inside the organization was unbelievably low in every department, from hockey ops to the coaching staff to the locker room attendants to the scouts. And that is because of the way that he treats people. Now, maybe he's just got a very different personality, but I think that fans even started to pick up on it, and just watching him in front of cameras, as condescending as he can be, not just keeping stuff close to the vest, but showing his obvious disdain for the media and things like that. And I think it just finally caught up to him, where just the brand of the Wild were taking such a hit, and Craig Leopold and Matt Maka and all the members of the Wild and the people that make 30, 40 grand, the sales executives, they worked their ass off to make this organization as reputable and put them near the top of the pedestal in this marketplace. And it was being totally broken apart here. It was a destructive atmosphere, and I think Craig finally felt like he had to just rid himself of a mistake. And I give him kudos for that, by the way. And I know you wrote a little bit about that today. Like I give him credit. That is not an easy mistake to. It's kind of like when you trade for a bad player, then you have the guts to buy him out. I mean, we saw it with Cam Barker here. We could all say what a crappy trade by Chuck Fletcher, but for him to then say, all right, you know what, I'm going to admit my mistake and buy the guy out, that says something to own up to it. And for Craig to make the embarrassing move of firing a GM in 1 year because he realized he effed up, I do give him credit for that. That doesn't repair the mistake. There's been a lot of damage done to this organization. Good players have now been gone from this organization. Great people have left this organization. And now you look back and you look at all the people that lost their job in the wake of this guy, and then he winds up losing his job after them. It's really a shame. There are unemployed people right now because of him.
I have a million questions. I think everyone here has questions. After our next break, feel free to start coming up and asking questions live if you like. And we'll also do a couple of Twitter questions. Do want to thank our sponsors, Twill in the Edina Galleria. I got this shirt there, just really comfortable. Fixology Repair, John Hedges, who runs fixologyrepair.com, is going to be up here later talking about his new shop in St. Paul and his business. Tony Hoaglund, your State Farm agent in Champlin, who's been with us for a long time. Bitesquad.com. Use the Bite Squad app to support this network. We do appreciate it. And, of course, Tin Shed Tavern. Tentatively, the next two shows live here will be August 14th and August 29th. We may tweak that schedule a little bit. Just follow us on social media. We'll get the word out to you. And as you know from being here, Tin Shed's a great place to hang out, watch these shows, play video games, watch all the sports on all the TVs, enjoy the food, whatever. So first, let's thank our longest-running sponsor, Twill in the Edina Galleria, twillmn.com. I'm here with my wife, Stacy. We went to Twill in the Edina Galleria the other day. We saw Scott Dayton, and I bought the nicest sport jacket I've ever owned, the most comfortable pants I've ever owned. They're Brax. A nice pair of loafers that I can wear to the ballpark. I think they're called Tracks. And I bought a bunch of Stenstrom short sleeve shirts to go with my Stenstrom nice dress shirts. And, I used to wear just disposable clothes. Now when I buy something, I buy it at Twill. I know it's going to last me the rest of my life, and it's going to be comfortable.
And on top of that, it's not just the best stuff you've ever had, but it's really everyday things that you can wear and that will fit all occasions.
Yeah, I've worn the Stenstrom short sleeve shirts every day this week. When I dress up or even just want to look nice at a game or a Lynx game or something, I wear the Stenstrom dress shirts. But really, the Brax pants are the most comfortable I've ever worn. They are more comfortable than jeans. I never thought I'd have anything more comfortable than a broken-in pair of jeans.
And he keeps saying that, Scott, so thank you very much.
Twill in the Edina Galleria, twillmn.com, Twill on Instagram. So how do you think Leopold made that mistake, given he knew Fenton so well?
I think that he was enamored with the fact that the reputation of Paul is that of a super scout. I think that there was a certain team that was looking to get rid of him that said very nice, kind things to him about him, and that's just a fact. And
that happens in our business a lot, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
If you want to get rid of a reporter or an editor, you give them a great review when somebody calls about them.
When I was at the Star Tribune, I said such nice things about you to other people.
Still couldn't get rid of me.
Yeah, I know. But the other thing is that I just feel that they went into it with, we're going to hire him. I do think the pool of candidates that they interviewed last year weren't the most prepared people. And I do think that Paul came in here with a plan and was confident. I mean, the one thing about Paul is he's confident in his beliefs. But his shortcomings was paranoia beyond the belief. I mean, the stories that I'm going to put, I was going to write, by the way, this expose for kind of Thursday on just what happened, and today was such a distracting day with the amount of phone calls and text messages I got from people that I just haven't had a chance to finish the story. I talked to like 15 people that want to be the next GM of the Wild today. So people that think that people don't want to come to Minnesota, trust me, they do. And then I talked to a lot of players on the Wild today and people like that, so I just never got done. But the one thing I will say is that I think that Paul, one of the things that's going to be in this story is also his wasted energy, that instead of working and focusing on trying to make the Wild better, he was always like, how did Russo get this? How did Russo get that? I mean, the stories in this thing conference calls that he would have with agents accusing them of being leaks, and everybody walking on eggshells in the organization when I broke something because they knew that Paul was going to accuse them. And it just became a stressful existence for me. It became a stressful existence for them. So that was one. He didn't trust people. He had a very small circle of people that he listened to. If you did not agree with his opinion or you dissented, you were pretty much either not talked to for the next little while or basically snubbed aside. And basically then just again the way that he treated people, those were kind of the weaknesses. And so those would be the big parts of the story. But I don't know how it's possible to sit in a room and interview Paul and not kind of pick up on some of those red flags, because it's his personality when you talk to him.
We saw it at the opening press conference.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, so I just think that in Craig's mind, he just felt like, thank you, that he felt like this was the guy that he wanted to hire. I think he was enamored by him. Tom Fitzgerald was very close, but I think that he felt like Paul's experience in a front office, even though it was very singular focused, as a scout, I think that he thought that would be for a team that had traded a ton of picks and didn't have a ton of prospects, that would prove valuable for this team. And maybe it has. I mean, we'll see. They had, 16 or 17 draft picks the last couple of years. We'll see. Maybe some of these guys turn out to be great players. Maybe Fiala and Donato wind up panning out big time. We'll find out.
Suter and Parisi's names are always at the center of whatever happens with this franchise. Mm-hmm. And, we were joking earlier about the idea that, your article with Parisi might have affected Fenton's job status. There's also the prevailing conspiracy theory around the Wild, which is that Ryan Suter is making all the decisions and calling all the shots. I don't think it makes any, that's probably some truth in some instances. It doesn't make any sense that Suter tried to get Fenton fired.
No, that definitely. I think where that perception sometimes happens is that I've written that also that Craig is making the rounds right now to talk to players, because right now there's no GM. And so he talked to Parisi last week mostly about what was going to be in my story, and then talked to Suter. He's called Mikko. He wanted to fly to Spurgeon. He had lunch with Zucker yesterday, the day he fired Paul. So I think that there's just this conspiracy, this perception out there that because Ryan and Craig talked right before Paul was fired that Ryan had something to do with it, and I can promise you that's just not true. So, and same thing with Zach. I mean, Zach was more talking about the coincidence. The timing of it is a coincidence. I mean, I know what was discussed in those meetings, and pretty much everything that Zach said in my story is stuff that he said to Craig, had nothing to do with Paul, and it was more to do with just the future of this team and where he feels he is in his career. So, but. I could just tell you that Ryan had nothing to do with Paul Fenton being fired.
And we haven't gotten to it yet. We're going to get to John Hedges here in one second. Tell me more about the piece you did with Parisi.
Well, yeah, I sat down with Parisi at Starbucks a couple Saturdays ago, a couple days after I got back from Europe, and I've been talking to Zach since during the season that I wanted to do a big 35th birthday story, kind of like where he is in his career, looking past, future, and present. And but I also, I talked to Zach a lot. I know the way that he is feeling right now about his career, about the future here. And so I told him, if I was going to do the story, it needed to be candid. I didn't want to go in there and all of a sudden say, I'm just really excited about, being here and we're going to be great and win a cup. And
best ship in my life.
And so we sat down and we talked to him about everything from his dad to the way that, when his dad passed away, that it affected him the next couple of years, to where he's going from here, to the team, to being a family man now when he wasn't 7 years ago, to early in his career, to his biggest influences and things like that. But the one takeaway from this story is that, the big question is, do you regret coming here? And he said, and his reasoning why he doesn't regret coming here is he got to at least spend those 2 years with his dad, and especially the last couple months, which were really dire, when his dad stopped taking chemotherapy in November or October of that year, and he died, really 7 or 8 weeks later. And at least he got to be here for that rather than being tormented from being afar. But the thing with Zach right now is he is very concerned about the state of the team. He knows he's 35. He feels like he's still very productive. And I think that he would like to be on a team that's going to win. Now, does that mean that he wants out? Read between the lines, I guess, if you want. But I guess the point of the story is that where a year ago, where it would be completely out of the realm of possibility that Zach Parisi would ever play on another team, or that he would ever trade him, or that he would ever accept a trade. Now, it's not that way anymore. Paul Fenton talked to other teams about Zach Parisi. That's what I'm reporting. I promise you that's the case. They had one trade offer. I know what the trade offer was. I know which team it was, and I would absolutely guarantee that if the Wild made that move, fans would absolutely freak. So it was just that bad of a trade offer. And then even if you make that move, you got to get Zach to say yes. So I guess the point of the story is that if you came to Zach Parisi right now and said to him, hey, this team wants you, and if Zach Parisi, I think, thought that team actually had a path toward winning, I think that we're at that point where he would heavily consider going there. Again, that doesn't mean that he wants out, but it definitely means that for the first time, he wants to win, and if he thinks that's going to be elsewhere, he would absolutely consider that, even if it meant leaving his family for a couple months type thing.
Wow. Yeah. All right. So much more to talk about here. We do want to thank John Hedges for sponsoring the program. John runs Fixology Repair. You can find all of their goodies and their repair work they do at fixologyrepair.com. They just opened a new shop in St. Paul to go with their shop in downtown Minneapolis in the Skyway, and the one at the Mall of America, which is their flagship. John, thank you, first of all. Thanks for being here, as you often are, and tell me about the new shop.
Well, we just opened that new shop up. Officially Friday was the first day. Cool. So this is, I think, day 4. It's pretty quiet still. It is set up to do cell phone repair and watch repair on site. Still, like with the Minneapolis store, any jewelry stuff, I personally am taking back and forth to my jeweler in the mall. If you're looking for merchandise, watches, things like that, you want to go to the Mall of America store. But if the St. Paul store is more convenient, which I know one side of the river or the other for most folks, so it seemed best to kind of suit people over there. And we're actually right by the practice facility. We're on the Skyway Bridge between Wells Fargo Place and Town Square.
That'll come in handy for me.
Well, yeah.
And for all the Wild employees, because I know, not because of me, but because of you, Wild employees listen to this as well. So you'll probably get some of
And
their
they also
business.
walk by and
they
see
walk
what
by.
we do. So
Yes.
that's pretty nice. It's really visible. We are on the bridge. The light rail goes under us, which is always kind of entertaining if you have a little downtime. But look out one window, you see the state capitol up the street. But yeah, Parnier is my trooper over there. He was working the Minneapolis shop for about 2 years. He's very capable and at the moment very bored. So if you have anything to fix, bring it out to him. I mean, it's been 4 days, but I imagine it is going to pick up. So
He's a hard worker. I've been, when he was working in the Minneapolis shop, I'd walk by and he always had his head down and was working about 3 things at the same time.
usually that's the case, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, watches, we can do movement overhauls on site as well. We usually have to order parts in. Apple phones, smartwatches, iPhones, stuff like that, we handle no problem. So
And you can do wooden watches?
yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, good.
Size up your
Please.
wooden watches,
Yeah.
replace the batteries, wind your watch for you,
Do
whatever.
you do candle repair?
I'm sorry?
Candle repair?
No.
Okay.
Use
well,
a fire for that.
I was just thinking, I was trying to make it one-stop shopping for Michael with his weird internet purchases. Candles, not all of his weird internet purchases, just some of them. Candles,
these
wooden
shoes on the
watches.
internet the other day.
You got shoes on the
Yeah,
internet.
call on Instagram.
He bought shoes on the internet.
Yeah,
Nobody buys shoes on the internet.
of course. Maybe that's why like my feet hurt right now.
Just looking at my wife's face when you said no one buys shoes on the internet, she has something to say about
I
that.
apologize. Yeah. I meant no male sports writers buy shoes on the internet.
But as it is, feel free to swing out to the shop. It's Monday through Friday, 9 to 5:30 p.m. We like to stay open that extra half hour so people can swing by when they're done with work. So anything you need fixed, come on by. I'm sure that we'd like to help you out.
And everybody give John a round of applause if you would. We really appreciate him supporting the show for so long, and he's a cool guy. Thanks for being here, John.
No questions on the Wild?
Oh, fire away, yeah.
The biggest story you got. Did Zuccarello have to pay Sealer for the jersey number?
I talked to Sealer about that. I texted him from Europe. I think I was in there, and he told me. I actually can't remember what he told me. He didn't. I said to him, "Tell me that you made some." I said, "Tell me you got a Rolex from Zuccarello." And he said, "No Rolex, but some road dinners have been promised to him this season." I would have held out for more. So I would have absolutely held out for more. So
We are at the point of the show where we will welcome anybody coming up and asking a question of any kind. Just feel free, just walk up and we'll get to you. Don't be shy. Michael will not be as mean to you as he was to Paul Fenton. Mike Madonna.
yeah.
How big a part of this search is he going to be, and does he have the right kind of insights to be helpful?
I think so, and I think he's excited about it. I do think that one criticism that both Craig Leopold and Matt Mika acknowledged that I gave them after the last search was that they didn't have a hockey guy in the room with them asking questions, and I just think that you look. I've said it to you before, but I really was impressed with the Wolves, and I don't know if this new GM is going to be anything. Sorry, Ryan Donato text. So I just with
Ryan Donato got Paul Fenton fired? That's
no,
weird.
no. You got to edit that one out.
No,
Brandon.
don't edit that one out.
So the big thing to me with what were we talking about?
You're not flustered at all. That's the good thing here. Madonna.
Oh, Madonna.
Hockey
I mean, the
guy in
big
the
thing
room.
is that they didn't have a hockey guy in there, and I just think that the one thing they want to do right now is have somebody that's going to give them, ask proper questions, ask, maybe questions that just Craig Leopold and Matt Maka, who are two businessmen, very successful businessmen, might not think about, and just have a kind of a third party to get feedback on. Personality. Mike Madonna has. The one thing on Paul Fenton that I still can't get over when you ask, how did they hire him, is that it's not hard to do due diligence beyond just David Poyle.
Right.
All
scouts talk.
Yeah, I mean, and so Mike knows a lot of people, and he can make a lot of calls. And I've said it. I thought that was one of the shortcomings of Paul Fenton, is that he did very little due diligence. On Victor Rask, I knew that was going to be a disaster the second it happened because of people that I was talking to. I mean. Like the Carolina Hurricanes had 10 different people looking at Nino Niederreiter in the month leading up to that trade. And do you know how many people went and scouted the Carolina Hurricanes to look at Victor Rask? Zero. None. And same thing, no video work. And with Pontus Aberg, I was in Costa Rica when they made that trade for a wedding, and I made one call afterwards. One call to somebody in Anaheim. Hey, why is the leading goal scorer for the Anaheim Ducks not playing for the last 8 games? And he told me, and my jaw dropped. And again, that's stuff that should happen. And so with the GM search, what Mike will be able to help with, I think, is due diligence. And Mike will be really, I think, a helpful for somebody that's not going to again be in hockey ops. I think he'll really help Matt Makin and Craig Leopold along for this. And trust me, I really think that I know some of the candidates that are going for this job. There's a couple in particular that I really like, and I just think that this one, Craig and Matt know they must get right. They can't afford any more mistakes, and they know that. So,
how big a role did Matt play the first time around?
Matt Makin?
Yeah.
Well, I think he played a big role. My gut is that that. I think it was more Craig that wanted Paul Fenton big time. But Matt has always played a big role. I mean, he's a trusted lieutenant. He's the president of the team. He's been here since, I think, day one. He worked for Bob Nagley at his original business here. So if there's anybody that cares about this franchise, it's Matt. He has worked his butt off to make them as reputable as they are league wide, and I'm sure it has been extremely stressful to see the brand take a hit here the last year. And so I think that he is the guy that Craig really trusts, and Craig has a lot of trusted lieutenants, a lot of really good friends that help him along as people to bounce things off of here. But I think between Matt and Mike and Craig, they'll get a good candidate here. There's a small pool. The one thing I was talking to a GM candidate about today that's not positive that he's interested in the job, only because what freaks him out is that, say he's not hired until August 20th, let's say. Training camp's September 12th. It takes a while to get the lay of the land. Just imagine you getting a new job and just the first couple days, just getting a new cell phone, getting a laptop. How do you work your analytics system? How do you get into who's under contract? Let me see the list of scouts. There's a gazillion things you even have to do when you become a GM of a franchise to try to figure out who everybody is. And then you got to worry about the players and who and what their future is and your plan past the season, and it's going to be overwhelming. And I remember when Paul was hired in mid-May, it took him until late August to just calm down from the amount of stuff that he had to do to figure out this organization. And just imagine all of a sudden that being 3 weeks time. And so this person I talked to today that is employed by another team, and it was a complete off the record conversation because you can't be, from him, it's not appropriate for him to be talking to a beat writer from another team about potentially going to that team. But he was saying, like right now, it's like, yeah, I'm an assistant GM right now, but it's not. I'm in a comfortable spot, and all of a sudden, if this isn't going to be a quick hire, if this is going to take till late August to take this job, it would be probably overwhelming. So I'm not positive that he's even going to, if they call to ask for permission, and who knows if they will, if he's going to put his name in the hat. I think about when training camp, first year here in 2005, training camp started September 12th, I think it was, and I moved here September 9th, and I remember it was until the end of the month that it was just overwhelming because you have to deal with your life, where you're going to live, moving in from Florida, things like that. And then, new newspaper, new team, all that stuff. And it took a couple months into the season for me to just finally calm down. And so just imagine that from a GM standpoint, when you actually have a job that matters.
I knew you were going to say that. I wasn't going to say it. I knew you were going to say it. I actually want to get into the reporting process a little bit as much as you are capable of. Let me thank Tony Hoaglund, who's been sponsoring the program and the network for a long time. Hoaglund. The best endorsement we can give Tony is that he handles my insurance, he handles Michael's insurance, house insurance, car insurance, everything. Hoaglund. He works out of Champlin, but he's easy to work with wherever you are.
Hey, Minnesota sports fans. This is your local State Farm agent, Tony Hoaglund. I need you all to ask yourselves this question. If you're in an at-fault car accident and you are sued for $700,000, how much of that $700,000 will my current insurance company pay? If you are unsure or can't answer all 700,000, you need to give us a call. State Farm has been number one in car insurance since World War II and number one in homeowners insurance since 1964. For a no-obligation review of your current policies, call us at 763-421-4900 or check out our website at www.champlininsurance.com.
All right, so respecting confidentiality and things you can't talk about, what has this week been like as a reporter? How long ago did you get an inkling this could happen, and what was the reporting process like for you?
Again, you start to get inklings, so I always have stuff in the can. I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, I had the Mike Yo fired story in my computer for 3 years. That's just kind of so. A lot of the stuff with Paul. I've been making a list all year of just some of the bizarre things that have been going on. And, so it's more like I know a lot of people read my story that was up so quick yesterday or even a couple hours before the Wild put it out and said, well, obviously he knew this was happening for weeks. And a lot of that is just stuff that I have files that I just essentially now start rewording or putting into, a different order or whatever. But you start to look. I know that I know he was on thin ice, but I did not know that he was going to get fired this week. I mean, I think on our last podcast, somebody asked you a question like, what GMs are going to potentially be available next summer, or right now, if Paul Fenton's fired. I'm like, well, look, let's deal with that when we worry about it, right? I think that's somebody. I can't remember exactly what happened yesterday, let alone in the last podcast, but I do remember there was a question about Paul being fired that I sort of just brushed aside. So it's I'm not going to sit here and claim that I thought he was going to be fired this summer. I did think he was going to be fired this summer if they missed out on free agency. That's how. Let's put it this way. That's how on thin ice he has been, and I've never covered anything like that, where you just know that the GM that usually you want around for a long, long time is in that precarious of a position. But in terms of reporting, a lot of phone calls, a lot of texts, a lot of making sure that I'm getting it completely accurate, and again, I hate that I'm like constantly just piling up on him, but it was so easy to get info on him this whole season because because of the way he treats people. I mean, it's an open book right now, and now hopefully everything will be buttoned up, and I hope my job's still easy, but the reality is that the state of dysfunction around this team in this league, it's just been very, very easy to get information, and that's what I've always told him. When he's accusing like one or two people of being sources of mine, and then frankly he got rid of a couple of them, and I was still breaking every story. I would be like, see, that you just cost a guy his job. When I'm still getting the stories, essentially give me some more credit. I've covered the league for now 20-something years. So to me, yesterday, as stressful as it was, it wasn't hard, to say it easily. I mean, when he was fired, which is around 10:40 in the morning, I mean, holy mackerel, the amount of texts and calls I got from agents, players, people, around the league. It just went like wildfire. In fact, I'm amazed it took so long. I'm amazed between the 10:45 that he was fired and me publishing the story at 12:06 that nobody else got it, because it was crazy how many people just immediately came to me like that hey, this happened. That also says about the state of the team here and why this probably had to happen. From the respect level, there wasn't a ton of it.
I wrote today about some of the precedents in recent Minnesota history, people who were obviously bad at their jobs. They still held on for 3 or 4 years. The only person I could think of who got fired really quickly was Fran Foley with the Vikings, and not only was he kind of all the things Fenton was, but he also falsified his resume so they had a smoking gun. They could say, okay, you're done, and you did this, you're gone. I mean, it was just simple,
Right.
Usually, it's hard to get fired as general manager because to get the job, you have to convince somebody you have a long-term plan, and the owner wants to believe in that long-term plan, or they wouldn't hire you in the first place. So Can you think of a hockey precedent of somebody being fired?
Well, I mean, the
this
only
quickly?
one I could think of, which was a bizarre one, was in 2006. Neil Smith was fired in 5 weeks over the summer, and Garth Snow took over with the Islanders. Tom Rowe was the only one in recent history that I could think of in Florida where he was like, GM, and then they made him the coach, or he made himself the coach, and then at the end of that year he was gone, and so he wasn't in Florida a long time, and that was a disaster. But I can't think of anything like this, and part of the problem here was it just felt like he just always shot from the hip, that there was no thinking about, there was no reasoning for a lot. We've talked about this all year long.
Yep.
There's just been no evidence that there was a plan. It was so many rookie mistakes. I mean, the Anthony Bitetto one is the one that I keep on going back to. You cannot, as a GM, the day after adding Brad Hunt, when the team is on fire, go and then next day, just because you like the player from Nashville, claim him off waivers, and now take a team that was absolutely on fire, had won 3 straight road games, just had these impressive wins in Vegas and Colorado back-to-back, and now completely overhaul the roster. One real reason why that team was on fire back in January was because of that fourth line of, I think, Eriksson, Greenway, and Cunnin. So now all of a sudden you make this move. You not only send Cunnin and Greenway down to the minors where they get no All-Star break now. Okay, so they're already pissed, okay? Like, they've been playing all year long, and now they're the only ones that don't get a little refresher here. But now what you do is you can't recall them. So then what happens is now you come back from the break, you lose your first couple games. Now you got to repair a mistake by putting JT Brown and Nate Prosser on waivers. So now you have a locker room that's pissed that Prosser's gone. So then you go to Buffalo and you say to Bruce Boudreau, hey, I want Bitetto in the lineup. So now you take Nick Seeler, who is playing his ass off, and you say he's scratched now. And it was such a mistake that I still just, I look at that as being the turning point of the season. I mean, you look at what happened there, and it was just a colossal 3-week, it triggered like 3 weeks worth of moves that didn't need to happen, all because he was not listening to his staff that was saying, wait a minute, So that was one of them. And it was always like that. He singularly focused on getting Kevin Fiala. No rhyme or reason for Fitz. No saying, we need a right wing. So it was constant. My favorite one so far is that Kevin Fiala is suddenly a natural right wing. Like, what? Like, then I go and, me with analytics, I'm not the biggest, I'm not, like, like when I'm kind of like, frankly, like Paul like this, like you don't like analytics if you don't understand it. That's kind of like me with analytics. But I went back and I studied shift charts and everything of Kevin Fiala because I knew he played left wing only in Nashville the last couple of years. But then I looked at his entire career, and unless they play some wacky freaking system in Nashville, when he leaves his zone, in Nashville, he was always a left wing. And that's, frankly, it's kind of the only way you could figure stuff like that out, unless you have somebody that's like, unless you can call up Peter Laviolette and say, hey, where have you been, which I don't have that type of relationship with Peter. So I looked at these shot charts and exit charts, and I'm like, this guy is not a right wing. He's never been. So how now suddenly is he a natural right wing? So that was kind of a big one. Like I'm doing power play units yesterday, and even just now, like you're figuring out the power play units, and you're looking at if Zuccarello, Parisi, and Stahl are unit 1 with, let's say, Dumba and Suter. What is your second unit? Because like first of all, they can't all be there. I'm not saying the Wild are like overabundance of talent here, but you look at it and you got Fiala, Donato, you have Zucker, you have Greenway, you have Cunnin. I got to think you're going to want a right shot on the power play. So there's Cunnin. Well, now up front. So now, who's not on the power play? But like, is Fiala suddenly going to have to play the point if Zucker and Donato are up front? And then does Spurgeon get left off? Does that definitely mean Greenway can't be on it? Like, and then you look at it and you're like, all those left shot guys kind of play the same position on the power play. They all want to play the half wall, and this is like stuff that should be elementary stuff for a GM to figure out, and he just never did. It's like, you figure it out. The Spurgeon thing, another rookie mistake. A major mistake. I asked him in Iowa in my Q&A with him. I said, do you think that you need to quickly get in front of Jared Spurgeon and find out what it's going to cost to sign him? And he said, no. And then what he does is at the first time at the draft, he sits down with him, or sits down with his agent to just have our first conversation. Well, how do you, as a GM, have your first conversation at the draft when that is when the only time you could really trade him if he... So the second you get past the draft, now they got all the leverage because they know you probably can't trade him the rest of the summer. So that made no sense. And then they waited and they waited and they waited, and now what happens? Jacob Trouba signs for $8 million. So now that $6.3 million that they originally went to him with is just not even in the marketplace anymore. So then they offered him more than money, and that's still below market value technically. And so now the new GM is going to have to handle that problem. I mean, these are just, it just, whether it's inexperience or just, or I don't know what it was, but it just, from a GM standpoint, it just wasn't smart, and it's sometimes I just believe it's because he just put himself alone on an island, and he got rid of a lot of the trusted people that would have been the ones saying, "We got to get going on this. We got to get going on this." And instead, in the office right now, there's few people that would say that to him. So.
I'm going to throw a curveball question to you.
I don't even remember what your question was.
It doesn't really matter, does it? It never really matters what the actual question is. Yes, hi.
And one reason why I do I'm talking like this is because it's like I feel bad that they were in this position. These are major mistakes, and it's set this franchise back, and that's why I'm glad. I think that. And I normally don't talk about this about people. I try to be much more professional than I'm being here and sort of whining. But I'm glad that Craig had the guts to admit his mistake and get going on this and just change it up.
But your job is to be honest.
Yeah,
so you're being honest.
And that's the thing is that another year of this and the damage could have been really, really bad. So they are trying to get this team to a new place, move on, start a new chapter, and get somebody in here that can really take control of this thing. And I do applaud them for that. I think that it was the right move, even though the timing of it was very peculiar.
We have a special guest question coming up. I do want to wrap up some business here. First of all, Russo's Filter, you know him from Twitter, is giving away tickets to the August 9th Lynx game. He came in town a couple years back, and he and Brandon went to a Lynx game, and they loved it. They had a blast. I love it. Cheryl Reeves does a podcast with me on this network. I think it's a great atmosphere. If you like basketball at all, come up and just fill out this and just write links on the top along with your other information, and we will get the tickets to the winner of that drawing. Also want to thank BiteSquad, bitesquad.com, BiteSquad the app. Use the promo code TALKNORTH to get your first delivery fee waived. Just keep using it after that because they've been a great supporter of the network. So BiteSquad, bitesquad.com. They're delivering for morning, noon, and night now. You can sign up for the member program, $5.99 a month. They'll deliver for free anywhere within a 4-mile radius. They keep adding good restaurants. I highly recommend it. And now, fire away.
I'm Paris, and I just have 2 questions. The first one is, when you saw Leopold at the draft, I mean, you must have started having that feeling if you didn't already, kind of that he was babysitting, more or less. And then before that, when he first came on with the Wild, did you start having a feeling right away that?
Yeah.
Questions.
I mean, I don't want to get too inside baseball here, but I mean, I've had a feeling since I met him in 2009. We didn't have a very good intro in 2009, and that was during the last GM search. But I will say that, when he was hired, I was sort of excited because I did have a relationship with him. I have a really good friend that worked for the Nashville Predators until this past February or March, and now he's in Columbus. But he loved Paul. Now, they weren't in the same department or anything like that, but he always just had great things to say. So whenever I would be covering a Nashville game, this person that worked for the Predators is my best friend in the whole world. I'd go and hang out with him before the game, and Paul would always come up and chit-chat. One time I was doing that, and Paul was like, hey, I got, basically gave me a scoop. David Quinn's here to surprise Jordan Greenway for his first ever game. So, we had really good kind of interactions the last couple of years. And so when he was hired, I'm like, oh, this is going to be awesome. And then right from the first feature that I worked on him, it couldn't have been more, couldn't have been tougher to work with him. And it's just kind of been that way. And then my first interaction with him at the draft, we got off to an awful start. I mean, awful. I broke that story that they were going to trade that the Zucker and Niederreiter for Dvorak, Domi, and Ennis was in the deal, and he freaked out. just freaked, and on his staff, on me, and it was just bad. And from that point on, I just think he was a Nashville. He's never been in a position like this. He's never had to deal with media. The media in Nashville is very different than the way that we are here in Minnesota, and the way that I certainly am in terms of aggressively pursuing news and things like that. And so it got really tough. And in terms of at the draft, I would say yes. By Leopold being, it wasn't so much that Leopold was at his right hand at the table. It was more the stuff that he's in scouting meetings and that he's asking questions to the amateur scouts. And that to me seemed to be an owner that's like really trying to ask questions. So, there was, what's that? Yeah, he was. I mean, and a lot of that had to do with, I think he was very concerned about the amateur scouting staff. He was very concerned that, to say it bluntly, that PJ was put into this position of running, the draft and things like that, or co-running the draft. And so I do deep down think that Craig was doing, his antenna was up, is the way that I would describe it, and that he's been trying to, really figure out what was going on. Behind the scenes in the organization, there have been, staff members talked to the last 2-3 months, really as they were trying to figure out how do they improve the morale of, a very down group. So.
Is PJ still going to stalk you?
Well, no. Well, because I ran into him in Munich.
Yeah, you ran into him in Munich.
And I will say, with PJ, I feel bad for him. I mean, he's sort of now in this position where just there's perceptions out there that he can't do the job. He's a longtime hockey guy, and he's still going to be part of this organization unless he decides to leave, which if I'm him, I wouldn't. If I don't know how many years he's got left on his contract, but this was his first year with the team, so I got to think he's got 2-3 years of guaranteed money left. I'd take it if I had a young family, and so I think he's going to be still part of it. And now, and so it's got to be awkward. And as I said, I got together with him for the first time at the draft, and he and I had a really good conversation. And I ran into him in Munich, and I ran into him with Vicky and Clyde over there actually, and
you don't just run into people in Munich.
Yeah, it was very affable, and so I know that I'm sure that right now, and he listens to all our podcasts, by the way, so I'm sure that he's not a great fan of this one today, this particular version, and so like at some point here, I talked to a player today that I know, it's kind of like I'm sort of like Craig Leopold made the rounds the other day. I mean, I started making the rounds today and calling players to just, kind of, because I also know that what Paul said to a couple players about after he was fired. And so I've been kind of calling those guys to just say, hey, I just want to make sure that you understand what really went down here. And I'll probably do the same thing with PJ and just make sure that, hey, if you want to continue to have a working relationship, I'm definitely, I respect you. I'm here. We got to work together, and hopefully that'll continue here.
All right, I'm going to throw the curveball question of the podcast. Given kind of the dysfunction you described and the fact that he was messing with lineups and he was messing with the team's momentum at times, is there any chance that if they hire the right general manager, he comes in, gets along with Bruce, Dumba's healthy, this team ends up looking a lot better than the team we thought we were watching last year?
Well, at this point, the team is the team. I can't think that any new GM is going to be able to change the lineup. So for them to all of a sudden get fixed, it's going to have to be great coaching and internal improvements by these guys and people put in the right spots, great health, things like that. So yes, it's going to take Dumba being back completely healthy. It's going to be Koivu being completely healthy. It's going to be taking, internal steps from guys like Greenway and Eriksson Ek and Donato and Fiala and Cunnin. And it's going to take bounce back years from guys like Stahl and Zucker. And so, but to me, it's still the same thing. Regardless right now who's running the team, are they as good as the other teams in this division? That's going to be the question. They have an unbelievable tough start to this season. I was booking hotels a couple days ago, and I just, again, could not believe how much, again, to get, I always bring it back to me, but I cannot believe how much I'm going to be on the road the first 2 months of the season. It's crazy. I mean, 13 of 18 games on the road to start the year, and I'm pretty positive I figured it out that I'm gone like 30 of 36, 7 or 8 days. I mean, that is tough for any hockey team, and so this is not going to be an easy start to the season. So the one thing that I like talking to Boudreau a lot lately, the one thing that I think that I like is that Boudreau is, at least with Paul, made it very clear that he wants to get down to a real workable number right off the hop. They're doing a really cool thing in training camp, which I'm not positive I should say, but they're going to Colorado for 3 or 4 days. And so because of that, it's bookended by a couple exhibition games. They're basically probably only going to bring 28 guys. So right away, early in camp, whether they might keep some guys back here to work with coaches, but they're bringing essentially their team. And that hopefully will bond this team to a point that it could maybe kick them off here. But the one thing that Bruce is going to have to do is he's going to have to use these exhibition games. It can no longer be just a bunch of minor leaguers out there and just awful hockey. I mean, they've got to use the exhibition season to tune up, to start the season flying high, and he's got to figure out guys in proper roles. I mean, as we've talked about, it's not going to change suddenly. They are going to have 2 left shot guys on the right side that aren't natural right wings. And so, he's going to have to figure out who fits perfectly there. He's going to have to figure out who his power play units are, who his lines are. One thing on the power play, I mean, he might have to have a hard conversation with Koivu. I mean, there's a chance to start the season that the leading scorer in franchise history and the leading power play point producer in franchise history might not be on the power play. Because if Bruce Boudreau wants to have a right shot guy on that up front on that power play.
Speaking of,
sorry. Anyway, if we could ask him
can he leave you alone for 1 minute?
Calls as much as my mother. If he wants to have a right shot guy in the middle on the power play, it's going to have to be Cunnin. Well, but again, if you're going to have Zucker, Fiala, and Donato on the power play, which I would think you'd want to, I mean, you might have to have a really hard conversation with Mikko. That's one of the things I do want to talk to him about here lately is coming up here is what the heck's your power play unit's going to be and how you're going to figure it out. And it's funny. I talk like this, and I'm thinking to myself, God, I sound so stupid because I'm acting like they have Ovechkin, Backstrom, Oshie, but but if you really think about it, it's really hard to slot all these guys in the proper spots, and all of a sudden you are going to have guys that egos are going to get hurt. I mean, there is a chance if Mikko's on the power play that Cunnin and Greenway, 2 guys that you would want on the power play, might not be on the power play. And then the other thing is that Greenway doesn't kill penalties, so you might have to really experiment there and try to figure out a way to get Greenway on the penalty kill if he's on the power play. Wow, look at that shirt, nice. Throwback. That's a throwback. Yeah.
I think that shirt earns you a question.
Yeah.
That's true. It's a Star Tribune shirt too.
Wow.
Someday you'll get. Someday you'll get to work there again.
Yeah. I'd budgeted for another 3 months.
Actually, to give you a scoop, I definitely not someday soon because in the car I signed a new contract. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I will not be at the. I will be at the Athletic for some time.
10-day contract.
So, I mean, literally in the car as the Connors walked up. So,
congratulations, Michael.
Yeah.
First of all, congrats on breaking a huge story and
thank you.
waiting 2 hours before anything else got out there. So I was happy for you as I was reading the article. But I guess my question is, so obviously Craig has been making calls to players. What's the role of Bruce Boudreau and really Koivu in this situation, just with all the tumult? How will they, or what is their role, or how do you see that playing out in terms of just bringing some stability to the situation?
I think, you're talking Mikko and Boudreau, not Leopold, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I mean, Mikko, my guess is, I know that Mikko's back in Finland. He's coming back pretty soon because his kids have to start school at the end of the month. But I'm sure other than the typical player text messages, which I would love to be privy to, I don't think that he's got a huge role right now. But when he gets back, I mean, I think that, Craig Leopold, Bruce Boudreau, and Paul Fenton are going to try to get with all these players to try to get them back together as a team, and I think Mikko's part of that. I've reported that Paul Fenton back in I think June had a conference call with Parisi and Koivu and Suter about kind of, all right, we got to get back on track here, get everybody together, from a leadership standpoint and things like that. And I'm sure that'll continue. From Bruce's standpoint, I know that he's called a lot of players all summer long. Bruce has never missed the playoffs in his career, in a full season in the NHL. And so he's been miserable all offseason, absolutely miserable. And so he is trying to get his guys back again into a proper frame of mind. I'm sure that as these guys start to trickle back into town, Bruce is out of town for the next 9-10 days because he's doing his hockey school back at home in Ontario. But when he gets back here, I guarantee you he's going to start going to the Beauty League. I guarantee you he'll start going to Braemar to watch some of these informal skates. I guarantee you that he will, especially now that it looks like Zach Parise is 100% staying because there's no GM, that he will, after reading the story and seeing what Zach said the other day and seeing what Zach said at the end of the season, he's going to want to sit down, have lunch with Zach, and just work to get him into a proper positive frame of mind. And so that's kind of the role right now. It's more on Boudreau than Mikko. I mean, that's just a fact. So,
a couple of things I read in the last 24 hours. I think they were from Burnside, but correct me if I'm wrong. I think he said that he didn't think Fiala had any real chance of being a great player, to put it, and he also wrote that he thought Leopold should just back away from hockey decisions. Your thoughts on either or both of those?
On Fiala, look, it's way too young. We obviously have seen flashes of being a great player. I mean, when I watched him in that game in Nashville, I mean, that looked like a game breaker. And we just didn't see that enough. I've said it like a broken record, but my biggest concern, even at the time of the trade with Fiala, watching him in the many games I've covered between Minnesota and Nashville, is that I just saw a guy that looked like a player that had a major injury. And it's funny, I was texting yesterday. It's unbelievable, by the way, when a story like that happens yesterday, the amount of text messages you get from people that you haven't heard from in a long time. Not GMs and Danny Heatley, and people like that. But Curtis Foster texted me, and so I started to think with Curtis equate that to Fiala. Curtis broke his femur, changed him as a player, obviously, and Kevin Fiala had a major injury, a broken femur, and I don't think his break was quite exactly like Curtis's. Curtis was absolutely devastating. And Fiala's, I don't think, was as severe, but regardless, it's a broken freaking femur. And I think that when we watch Kevin Fiala play and watch him turn the puck over as much as he does, that to me is a sign of somebody that's like, oh my God, I don't want to freaking get hit in the corner right now. And I think that's because of that injury. And that was my concern at the time. And I think if that doesn't stop, if he doesn't take care of the puck better, he just cannot be the player that Paul Fenton thought he was going to be. And I think a lot of times when you draft people, you look at them with scout's eyes forever. You see it. I mean, like all GMs, I mean, Paul has the people that he really loves. I mean, if you talk to Paul Fenton, when you talk to him about people like Freddie Gaudreau or Patrick Hornquist or Kevin Fiala, people that he drafted, he feels incredible ownership of them. He wants them to succeed because it was his decision. And I think that's why he gets so singularly focused with Fiala. Was there another part of your question?
He also thought he thinks that Leopold should step away from hockey decisions.
Oh, I mean, again, look, Craig, this is his full-time job. He normally is not, I mean, he doesn't sit there and do it or not do it. If he did say do it or not do it, I would hope that he would have stopped a couple of these moves this year. Especially the Niederreiter for Rask one. So it's more like it's from a budget standpoint. It's like, all right, how's the money going to work and blah, 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 blah. The one thing we haven't talked about, not to change the subject, is we haven't talked about potential replacements for Paul Fenton, I don't think. Have we?
That was my next on my list. In fact, before we get to that, and you are changing the subject, since we have just a few minutes left, if you want to get your question in, get up here next 5 minutes or so. There we go.
Yeah.
I also want to thank our sponsors, Tin Shed in Savage. Their website, if you want to check out their menu, and all they have to offer is tinshedmn.com. Highly recommend this place. I have friends in Savage who come here all the time. We appreciate all of you coming down to this. Twill in the Dining Galleria, everything from casual to really nice stuff, from head to toe. I wear this stuff all the time. I love it. Fixology Repair, John Hedges' shop. Remember the new shop over in St. Paul now. Tony Hoaglund, your State Farm agent Champlin, and remember to order from Bitesquad whether or not you've already done so. So there we go.
So I have a couple questions. So one, you mentioned having a hockey guy in the interview process. Mm-hmm. Is there a reason like Boudreau's not part of that?
Good question. Well, one, he's out of town. Although I think he's told Craig, if you need me, I'm back. I'll leave my school type thing. But my guess is just I don't know. I don't have a great question for that, other than I think that it would be awkward to take a coach that's in the last year of his deal and put him in the hiring process of potential next GM that could be here for 10 years. That type of thing. And so that would be my only real good answer to that. It just would be extremely awkward. I've never in my life heard of a GM being interviewed where the coach of the team is going to be in there with the owner. I mean, that just, there's got to be a hierarchy, and all of a sudden it kind of paints this picture of the new GM, like, what the hell? Like, it would create an awkward thing. My mother, as I was driving here, is like, you think Craig will have you in the interviews and ask questions? And I'm like, I think that'd be a conflict of interest. I really do.
It's not a bad idea, though.
No, it isn't a bad idea. I've offered that. I sent Craig a list of names. I won't lie about that. So,
well, I would say you and I would have done a better job hiring the last GM, and that's with me contributing.
Well, but it's like, it's funny because what we say, we kind of like rail on Craig because he hired the guy that he knew, but I would have done the same thing. Like Tom Fitzgerald would have been the guy. Like,
yeah, but you wouldn't have hired somebody who would have acted like Paul Fenton.
Yeah, but it would have been the same thing. It was like I would have had Tom as my first interview, then interviewed a bunch of other people, then I just would have hired Tom that we all knew all along I was going to hire Tom. So, anyway.
So my next question is, they want to get this hired quickly, is what it sounds like to me, but that really worries me. And so is there a reason that they wouldn't just let Tom Curvers take over for the year and then?
Well, I mean, I will say I don't think he's a candidate. He's dealing with a health issue right now that does preclude him. He's got to get treatments. It does preclude him from traveling, and so I think that would probably be the biggest reason. So. Obviously they respect him greatly, but that's probably, that would probably be the biggest reason.
Yes, sir.
Something like that.
So I'm sure you read the Burnside article.
Yep.
That's follow-up to yours.
Yep.
And so
by the way, there was just on one thing, there was a lot of people that said, Russo ghost wrote this story. If that's the right way to say that.
Sure.
But that's just completely inaccurate. I mean, Scott and I are extremely close. He did not talk to me once before he wrote that. Obviously, he reads what I write. And the only thing he did, and actually, I will say this, the only thing he did is he sent me the story around 6-something or whatever time last night to give it a read to make sure he didn't screw anything up. And by the time that I even opened it, because I was driving, and I had a ton of calls, I got to Delwood Country Club just to kind of like sit and just relax after a long day. And I was sitting outside, and I had so many calls and texts to respond to that I didn't all day, that by the time I opened his email and read it, all of a sudden I looked, and the story had been up on our site for an hour. So like, I really had nothing to do with it. It's not like when I was at the Star Tribune and I ghost wrote our columnists' columns.
Well, it's good to have somebody bring down the expectations every once in a while.
So in that article, he brought up that Leopold needs to not take one but 2 steps back from the Wild, which you kind of already answered that question about, is Leopold too involved with the Wild, because he is a super fan and he owns the team. So I was reading an article today on ESPN from, I think it's Steve Wisniewski and Emily Kaplan.
Greg. Yeah,
and
Greg.
They were talking about who the Wild should hire and not go down the retread route. And the only retread that they had was Hextall, and Wisniewski was talking up Wyshynski, sorry. Was talking up Zito from Columbus, and Kaplan was talking about your guy, Fitzgerald. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about Zito, because I haven't heard much about
I mean, Bill has been a longtime agent. He's been in Columbus for 6 years. He is very respected. He is also dealing with some off-ice health issues to his family right now. Within 48 hours, his mother and his wife were diagnosed with cancer. And this weekend, he's in just a gigantic, amazing bike race to raise awareness for that. He pulled out of Seattle because of the health reasons. I did a lot of due diligence on this today. His wife, in particular, is doing a lot better right now, is in a good place. And I think that he'd be interested in this job. They haven't called to ask for permission yet. Tommy Fitzgerald, I mean, former captain, one of the greatest people I've ever covered, worked in both Pittsburgh and New Jersey with Shiro and just has a great relationship with him. He's in Plymouth right now scouting the USA hockey thing, but they have, as of this afternoon, I don't think asked for permission to talk to him yet, which to me jives with what I've heard. The way it was explained to me, which it does bother me, is that last year was a different time, and now after hiring a newbie, they want somebody with NHL experience. I just think that just one failed mistake by a guy that should have been more prepared, shouldn't all of a sudden make you think that you can't hire somebody that's never had full NHL GM experience. But right now he might not be the just because he was the runner-up last year. I don't think they're going to be like, all right, we're sorry, we made a mistake, you're hired. I think Hextall is the front runner right now. The problem with Hextall, and I don't know him great, even though I've covered the league a long time, but I've really never dealt with him. But talking to a ton of people that I would hope that Craig and Matt are talking to as well, so he has a lot of personality traits that Paul had, from the standpoint that very patient, wants to build from within, which isn't a bad thing, but, you have an owner that, how's that going to mesh with his personality? Small, trusted inner circle, and keeps everything close to the vest and is a very big micromanager and stuff like that. So the one name that absolutely intrigues me, and I know I freaking angered Carolina Hurricanes fans today like I was throwing stuff against the wall, but all I could tell you, if you're listening, Carolina, is I don't throw shit against the wall. Sorry, Brandon. Bleep. And sorry to the 4-year-old I saw with her. Sorry. Anyway.
If he's going to hear it, he should hear it here first.
But let me just promise you, Don Waddell is available for this job, is interested in this job, and will talk to the Wild. He is a free agent. It's unbelievable that a GM that did as good a job as he did this year to get that team to the Eastern Conference Final and has had a great summer off season and stole Nito Niederreiter is a free agent right now. He does not have a contract past June 30th, and I get the impression it pisses him off. And I think he's very interested, and I think the Wild are interested in him. And I think that now maybe at the end of the day, what it does is, like a lot of times, all of a sudden that contract in Carolina is going to get done because Minnesota's interested. Who knows? But I do think that the Wild are going to have a conversation with Don Waddell, and he, I mean, for what he did this year, and if you want experience from somebody that's been in the league a long, long time, that he might make sense. So,
good question. Thanks. Did you have another one? Are you good?
That was what I was going to ask about.
Okay.
Don Waddell. But while I'm up here, whoever they do hire as the next GM, is there anything that he could do to repair some of the bridges that were burned, as far as like the thing that he did? Well, I don't know if he did it per se. That bothers me the most is right now, like Andrew C. Thomas, Alexander Mandrick, you're both gone.
Yeah.
And if I'm a new GM, those like Andrew C. Thomas would probably be the first guy I would look at to bring in. But do you think he'd ever think about coming back?
With a new GM, maybe. The way I understand with Andrew is that he's got a really cool opportunity, not with a team, but in a private sector type of job that's going to be very much involved with the NHL and I don't want to give away too much, but he's got a really cool opportunity. The reason why I don't is I don't know if it's 100% certain and that it's done, and I shouldn't give it away. And Alex is obviously in Seattle. That ship has sailed. That was a big mistake, is that he really didn't have a lot of time for analytics, didn't show them a lot of respect. Obviously, he definitely didn't bring him to Florida before the Rask deal, or that trade probably wouldn't have happened, because they probably would have, not held down the phone. And then what he did is he let Andrew go before knowing 100% that Alex was returning, which, just wasn't a bright move. So, I think they have hired a new analytics person. Whose name escaped me. I tweeted it last week. That worked for Hockey Canada, and I'm sure that will be that the next GM will look to expand that department. The Wild front office right now is pretty archaic. It's like the way it was done years ago. There's just not a lot of people in there. They don't have a sports science department, which a lot of teams now have. They don't have really an analytics person. They have, it's just the crumbs right now, and they've got to figure out a way to kind of, build that back up. So
I think you've said enough.
I do too. Another uplifting podcast. Thanks for coming.
This is great therapy.
Yeah.
This started off as a therapy session back when we did our first podcast.
I was in such a great mood when I walked in here, too. So, what I should do is just, like I told you, I haven't written that story. I should just, have somebody transcribe our podcast and just, buy Michael Russo. And just put that on The Athletic on Friday.
I think you do your best writing here.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, thanks, everybody. Another huge crowd.
Let me take
a
panorama picture here. How about that?
Oh, do that, and then send it to me.
Yeah. There we go. By the way, I'm terrible at panoramic pictures. If you saw my...
Just because you have jittery hands, because you drink gallons of coffee and never sleep.
There we go. Thank God that kid left before I cursed. So...
thank you all. We really appreciate it. Please give Michael a hand. Thank you to our producer, Brandon Morton. August 14th and August 29th are the next tentative dates. Follow us on social media to make sure you get the updates. And thanks, Michael.
Pretty little city built on a hillside. Music in the bars and fire in the sky. We went to the beach and it was covered in ice. And I used to call it home. So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world won't forgive a winner.
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive's #1, #2 employee. Leave a message at the... Hey, Jamie, it's me, Jamie. This is your daily pep talk. I know it's been rough going ever since people found out about your a cappella group, Mad Harmony, but you will bounce back. I mean, you're the guy always helping people find coverage options with the Name Your Price tool. It should be you giving me the pep talk. Now get out there, hit that high note, and take Mad Harmony all the way to nationals this year! Sorry, it's pitchy.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive's #1, #2 employee. Leave a message at the... Hey, Jamie, it's me, Jamie. This is your daily pep talk. I know it's been rough going ever since people found out about your a cappella group, Mad Harmony, but you will bounce back. I mean, you're the guy always helping people find coverage options with the Name Your Price tool. It should be you giving me the pep talk. Now get out there, hit that high note, and take Mad Harmony all the way to nationals this year! Sorry, it's pitchy.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.